Welcome to the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast, where Gauri Ramkumar of Document 360 finds the best SaaS self-service knowledge bases in the world and then interviews their creators. Let's get started with today's episode.
Good day, everyone. Our guest today is Jennifer Lambert, Knowledge Management Lead at Monzo Bank. Welcome, Jennifer, to Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking, and very excited to be here.
Fantastic. Thank you. The sun is shining outside, so it's a lovely day. Great. So let's get a quick introduction to yourself, Jennifer. Please let us know a little bit more about you. How is Monzo Bank related to documentation? Just a quick intro and what I very briefly mentioned.
Sure. So hi, my name is Jen. As you just discussed, I'm the Knowledge Management Lead at Monzo Bank in the UK. I'm based in London, currently based in the southwest of London in the sunshine, holed up in my corner office. I am the Knowledge Management Lead at Monzo Bank. If you're not familiar with Monzo, that's a challenger bank in the UK. We have about 4 million customers and growing very, very fast. I've been at Monzo for 2 months, so it's a new role for me. It's a new role for Monzo. They've never had a knowledge manager before. And before that, I was the head of technical writing at the Government Digital Service for the UK government.
Very nice. So very nice to know that you're getting very well settled into your new role as well. So just explain a little bit about how did you get into documentation initially?
Sure. Such a good question. I think the same as probably everyone listening to this. I don't think anyone wakes up as a 5-year-old and thinks when I grow up, I'm going to be a knowledge manager or a tech writer or a documentation specialist. So like many of us, I think I fell into it by accident. I had to make a decision quite early on in my career, whether or not I was going to go down the software engineering route or stay with the arts. I decided to study English literature when I was at university, which I did at Cardiff in the UK. And while I was there, I ended up becoming the science and technology editor for the student newspaper at the time, which is where I managed to blend my interest in technology and writing. And then from there, I thought I wanted to become a technology journalist. A lecturer at the time told me that I should work in public relations rather than journalism if I wanted to write. So that's what I did. So I ended up in PR. I did PR for a couple of years, then went into marketing for a few years, fell into content marketing, ended up working at a web development agency. And while there, ended up writing a lot of technical white papers, doing documentation, that kind of thing. And then found out there was a whole different world out there just within technical writing. So that's when I joined government, which is where I stayed for 4 or 5 years, ended up heading a team of technical writers there, and have kind of like broadly moved more widely into knowledge management now. And that's how I've ended up at Monzo in the role I'm in now.
Fantastic. So how many years of experience have you got in creating documents for various organizations, Jen?
It's probably about a decade's worth of experience. I started out very, very early, very, very young. Even when I was in school, I was doing ad hoc bits of freelance work now for different technology companies and writing documentation and white papers for people, even though I didn't really realise what those things were at the time. I wasn't in the workforce then properly at that point. And then, much later realised it was a whole profession in itself. So quite a while now.
Right, great. So though Monzo Bank is very new to you, I'm sure you must be in the process of setting up a lot of processes around documentation. So just talk us through a little bit more about what is your documentation process and who do you normally like to get involved in it?
Sure. So the documentation processes at Monzo, some are very mature, some are less mature. Because I've been there for 2 months, my main sort of focus for those last 2 months has been to benchmark what's happening, to understand what's happening across the organisation. The other thing to bear in mind is that my remit is very broad. So I'm responsible for our overall knowledge base, or the closest thing we have to that. So that's all of our company documentation, our policies, procedures, team documentation, all that kind of fun stuff. But also helping to the rest of the organisation with software documentation and everything that involves, and more on the kind of the architecture side. But also supporting our customer operations team as well, who have very, very specific and different documentation needs. So depending on which area of the business I'm working in and what I'm trying to benchmark, it can be a little bit different. But I always like to involve obviously standard practice to work with the subject matter experts and the users as much as possible. So I'm very, very lucky at Monzo where I can get direct access to our users quite quickly, Whether we're writing for people internally, that means I can go and find those people. Or if we're working with customers, we can get easy access for customers to be able to do user research and subject matter experts littered across the organisation. There's masses of them there, and they're all very, very happy to pitch in and help out with lots of different processes and lots of different documentation.
Very nice. So what are the important factors you consider when creating documentation for your organisation?
So for me, it always starts with users. I think this was something that was really drummed into me when I worked in government, where a lot of the design principles, standards, technology code of practice, and various other things that I use in government, all of them start with putting users first. And I've really seen the value of that. So I always begin there. Starting to define exactly who those users are, who your audience will be, exactly what tasks they're trying to achieve at the time, and then figuring out which bits of content in what format, what style, and in more detail on that to be able to find out what kind of content, what type of content, what style of content will help that user achieve that task that they have at that particular time. And then from there, it's more breaking it down, trying to determine more of a content strategy, publishing strategy for each of those, and finding ways to benchmark that work to measure and make sure it's actually working and actually helping people.
Very nice. So I'm not sure about Monzo, but in your previous engagement as well. So what role do you think documentation have in your customer service or success strategy?
Oh, I see it as a huge part. So it's a huge part of just of our customer operations frontline staff being able to provide accurate information out to our customers and to our users. So if we can't set our operations staff up for success to be able to offer the right information that a customer needs at that time, we're always going to see higher causes of complaints and other issues. We need to make sure that our operations staff feel really confident with the advice that they're giving, and that they can really, really help people with very detailed and very complex queries. Obviously, we're a bank. Often when people are contacting us, they're in quite stressful situations. Their finances are normally it's a stressful subject for some people. And so we want to make sure that we're always providing the most accurate and up-to-date advice that we can. So documentation and documentation support has always been a really critical part of the customer operations strategy at Monzo. We're putting a lot more weight behind that now. So we have very dedicated streams of work. We have big teams of people constantly measuring how well this works and where we need to kind of improve things. But it's always been a critical part of that strategy and always will be.
Nice. So in such scenarios, have you noticed any reduction in workload since introducing such quality documents?
Yeah, absolutely. So we especially on the customer operations side, we try very hard to provide a lot of external content, so a lot of help articles out to people so that our users and our customers can self-serve as much as possible. So as well as kind of more help within the app, for instance, if you're trying to do your banking, we also have more detailed help articles available online. If you're trying to do common tasks that we've seen come up again and again, and we have means where customers can fix their own problems, we can guide them through. If they have something more complicated or they would prefer to speak to a real life human, then we can take those on. But that is one of the metrics that we look at. So how much can we help the customers to help themselves, as well as then providing extra support. So the more we invest in this, the more that we see that it has huge benefits.
Nice. So again, measuring the quality of your documentation, how do you generally do that?
Really good question. I think with difficulty, like most people do. Again, it does depend what we're looking at. So for something that's maybe more internal. So we have a lot of, for instance, company proposals that people will write if they're proposing architecture changes to the overall architecture of how we've built the bank. We run on 1,500 microservices, which is quite a unique situation to be in for most kind of modern banks. And so we like people to, and encourage people to, and they definitely do, for example, write proposals on making those changes and how that works. So we kind of keep that very fresh. Obviously, measuring kind of metrics and success around that might be very different to how we would measure documentation success and customer support. So for something like that, we might look at the percentage of proposal coverage or making sure that proposals are up to date or the accuracy. We have different ways of doing that depending on what the content is. For something like customer operations, we're looking to improve our metrics in this area. At the moment, we are just starting a large benchmarking task to understand how confident more qualitative metrics and how confident our customer operations staff feel when they are trying to find information, whether they're confident that the information they find is up to date, whether they find that it is accurate, whether they have confidence in the approach and the process and how they can flag if they feel that a page doesn't provide enough information, for example. And we're using more of those metrics as well as more traditional benchmarking to understand where things are working.
Okay. Very nice. So, is your current documentation a publicly available one with Monzo?
We have some documentation that's publicly available. So, for instance, our API documentation is available. Help articles for customers are obviously available. Other documentation, and the main focus of my work is for internal content. So that is making sure that Monzo staff can support other Monzo staff, and that's for internal company documentation. And the majority of that is restricted and published privately, only for regulatory and security reasons. But Monzo is very keen on transparency and openness. So where we can publish things openly, we absolutely do.
All right. So the reason I asked you that question is just I'm curious to know if you're generating any organic search traffic from your knowledge base.
Not for our internal, because that is all locked down. Like I say, because we're a bank and it's very heavily regulated, it's not available for that.
All right, great. So how often do you update your documentation, or how often is there any way to measure that, the frequency in which your documentation needs to be updated?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it sort of depends what it is. If it's customer operations documentation, we have a number of changes that are made daily, and that could be a split between help articles and internally. So we register kind of like how many people are either editing or whether they're proposing changes to something, and we track all of those. We also track kind of the overall accuracy of bits of documentation as well, and we're getting better at that. It's been a bit ad hoc before now. We're finding different ways to be able to do that, but those are definitely some of the metrics that we're trying to improve. And like I say, that's what this big benchmarking project that I've just started is hoping to fix.
Very nice. So let's move on to our rapid fire round. So who have you learned the most about documentation from in your career?
Oh, am I only allowed one person?
No, you can name anybody. And any number.
In that
there
case,
must be a number of people, yeah.
There are a huge number of people. I would always start with my mentor and my previous manager, a lady called Rosalie Marshall, who is the former head of technical writing at the Government Digital Service, and is the person who set up technical writing as a discipline in government and had it recognised as its own profession within digital data and technology in government. I can't tell you how much I've learned from her and her approaches in terms of handling documentation, but also managing teams and just kind of making it a valued profession. So I would definitely say Rosalie probably above pretty much everybody else.
Okay, great. So can you share a documentation related resource you have recently consumed?
Oh, sure. My go-to for everything, all of the time, I probably check it maybe once or twice a day when I'm helping people with READMEs, is Daniel Beck's README checklist. I think he did a conference talk on it a couple of years ago. He has a very, very handy checklist published in a very meta format. It's published as a README, and it is a README checklist, and it's a fantastic resource if anyone out there is writing READMEs.
Thank you for that. That's great. So what is that one piece of documentation related advice you would give to your 20-year-old self?
Oh, what a fantastic question. Read more docs. I think we have a tendency to just focus on the project that we're working on at that particular time. Going out and reading other people's documentation is like one of the best ways to learn. I wish I'd done more of that earlier on in my career, but I definitely would do try and do that now as much as possible.
Very nice. So I know there's quite a lot you've shared, Jennifer, in the short span of time. Is there anything else you would like to share with our audience, and they can take away from this podcast?
Oh, I mean, there's an endless number of things that we could discuss as when it comes to documentation. I think it's such a big topic, and of course, it's such a broad industry. Gosh, there's so many things that we could go into more detail on. I think it's quite interesting to know at this particular time that we're recording this podcast, and I'm also not quite sure when it will go out, but it's an interesting time in the world at the moment. I think we're kind of experiencing a massive kind of change in how companies are approaching workforce management and having a much more distributed workforce. That decision has largely been removed from them. They've been forced into this. I think some companies that have previously invested very heavily in documentation and knowledge management are now reaping the benefits of that.
Yeah, true, very true.
Yeah, it's nice to see our profession suddenly valued. It's horrible that it's taken an event like this to cause that, but I do think that it will cause other companies to sit up now and start to realise the benefits of having good documentation practices when you can't just nudge someone across the office or poke the person sitting next to you to answer 1,000 questions. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how this is going to change our industry. I really hope that people continue to understand the value of what we bring. especially heading in potentially towards a recession or where things are going to get a little bit more financially difficult. I hope that companies still value what we do, still keep us on, still understand what we can bring to an organization if they're having to make headcount changes and difficulties. But I think we're in a good position to be able to help. And I don't think everybody is at the moment. A lot of us feel quite helpless, but actually we're in a very, very good position to help other people in this sort of event.
Very nice. Very well said, Jennifer. The current event that's happening across the globe has opened up many people's eyes in various things, working remotely, again, having a good documentation to support your customers without any interruption. So really, really nice to see. I always tell my guests that sometimes people don't realize the availability of documentation or a documentation team as they realize with the technical team or a customer support team. But this is also as important as a customer support team, because customer support can't service their customers if they don't have a supporting documentation ready for them.
100%. I always think that the quote I'm always leaning on more recently actually comes from Futurama. And it's a character of God in Futurama, and he says at the end of one episode, if you've done your job well, no one will be sure you've done anything at all. And I genuinely feel that is honestly the role that many different ops teams, and particularly technical writers and documentarians, play, that when we've done our job right and people can find information and act on it, no one really understands all of the work that's gone into that and everything it took to get to that point. They take it for granted, they get the information and they crack on with their day, but it takes an awful lot to get to that point. True.
So thank you, Jennifer, for sharing your unique experience and your journey with us today. And I really appreciate the time you spent with us. And you take care and keep safe and just be indoors.
Thank you very much. And same goes. It's an interesting time, but we will get through this. It's been lovely to chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Knowledge Base Ninjas podcast. Please head to iTunes, rate, and provide honest feedback on the podcast. See you next week.